Hey guys, welcome to our beginner's guide for animating your camera in iClone. In this tutorial, we're going to talk a little bit about Camerawork, some of the different camera effects that you can use. Essentially, we're going to be trying to recreate this scene which you see here. So I'm just going to play this. We have a crane down shot is what it's called. We're establishing our characters. This is our scene establishing shot, going down to ground level. We have Steve kind of walking his dog around in a medieval village. And you can see him just kind of casually strolling along. This is a reverse dolly shot, and we're slowly panning towards the front of the characters as well. And then we have our close-up shot. You can see it's Chuck from iClone 5 and his little bulldog. And then we have a reveal shot. Now you can see we have one ugly rat dude with some really nice looking armor, and there's a lot of suspense at the end of this scene, so who knows what's going to happen next. So this is the two things that you can achieve with a little bit of sound, a little bit of music, and some good camera work as well. So what we're going to be doing is recreating all of this stuff. Now to do that, I need to go to my scene tab up here and go into my camera section, and we're going to delete all the cameras we used in this scene. Now, just for time's sake, I already have everything timed out in this scene, so I'm going to be going to specific frames that I've already, pre-calculated out, just to make things easier for everyone here. And once we delete all our cameras, we're left with our preview camera. You can see up here we have a preview camera, and the preview camera is basically your camera that doesn't animate. No matter which frame you're on, you can just move it wherever you want in your scene. If we wanted to, for example, select this character, we can move the camera anywhere around. By pressing the Alt key and the left mouse button, you can dolly back and forth like this. By pressing the right mouse button, you can pan around like this if we have the character selected. Anything that you have selected will pan around that. And if we hold both mouse keys and the Alt button, we can zoom in and out. And you can also scroll in and out with your mouse scroll wheel as well. And if you want to go faster, you can hold the Alt and Shift keys and scroll in and out. And if you have a really big scene, you can just zoom like that, go really out and in really fast like that. So that's your basic camera navigation. And like I said, with the preview camera, it doesn't matter what scene you're in. If I just move it over here, there won't be any animation. It'll just remain in that spot. So keep in mind that the preview camera is the only camera that doesn't animate. And there's also a few hotkeys you can learn as well. If I zoom out right now really quick, if I press the A hotkey, it'll have a front view of my character. The S hotkey will have a reverse view of my character. D, side view. F will be the, if we zoom in right here, we have against the wall. F will be the other side, and G will be the overhead view right there. So those are just a few hotkeys to be aware of. Just your home row hotkeys right here. So let's go ahead now and start with our animation. Animation of cameras, that is. So to create a camera in our scene, the first thing we need to do is go up to Create in the panel, in the menu rather, right here, and let's select Add Camera. And so now we have a camera that appears in our Scene Manager. And I'm going to name this camera 01 and Establish Shot. Okay, because this is our first shot that we're going to recreate. And I'm going to select my character and go way up here into the rafters. And this is where we're going to zoom in to our character. So we'll go maybe somewhere like this. I think this will be just fine up here. And what I want to do is slowly crane down to the front of my character on street level. So to do that, I'm going to go to the next frame that I want to switch my camera at. Like I said before, I've pre-calculated these frames out just for simplicity's sake. So let's go ahead and play back. And we'll play back to frame 730. Is where the first camera switch is going to take place. And I'll talk at the end about camera switching. We're going to establish our cameras first. So around frame 730, you can also just enter the frame in here as well. It's probably easier to do that. Frame 730 is where we want our first camera animation to end. And our first camera animation is going to be very simple. I'm just going to go ahead and pan down to street level here, and we're going to zoom in a little bit on our character. So this is where we want our camera shot to end. So this camera shot is going to be 730 frames in length, and we're going to be kind of craning down on the character and going to about street level right here. So let's go ahead and play that back and see what happens. So you can see we have that nice slow crane down. And we're establishing our scene right here. We're focusing on this dog and our character. Boom, right there, and it stops at 7:30. Now let's go into the timeline by pressing F3, and let's take a look at our camera. Currently we have Chuck selected. I'm going to go ahead and select my established shot camera, and it'll appear in the timeline here, as long as you have this selected. This is called your object related track toggle button. So if you have that toggled on, if it's green, that means anything you select, like a lamp or established shot, that's going to appear in your scene. And we're going to talk about this transform key, which you can see in the transform track right there. That's basically your camera movement. So from here to here, that's where the camera is moving. After this, it's not moving anymore. If we want that shot to be faster, I can simply select my transform key, move it down to like frame 200 or something. And then if we play back, it's going to be like a really fast, crane down to our scene. We don't want it to be that fast. We want to keep it at about frame 730. So let's go over to here. And if we hold the Alt key and scroll our mouse wheel, we can zoom in on the timeline as well. And there we can see frame 730. So let's just move that over to frame 730-ish, I think. We can zoom in a little bit more even. There we go. Right there. Alright, so then we zoom out, and that's our first camera shot. And this is where we're going to switch the camera. This is where the first camera movement ends, and this is where we're also going to switch to camera 2. So let's remain at this frame right here, and let's create our second camera. Create, add camera, and the second camera we're going to call follow cam. So I'm just going to go 02, follow cam. This is the second camera that you can recall is attached to the character and is moving in front of the character, not really following it. Let's go ahead and select the character, and let's zoom in on the character right about here. And let's establish that shot. I think it was about something like this. We want a kind of a lower angle, so we're looking up at the buildings like that. And this is kind of a cool looking angle. We can see how tall these buildings are and everything. We can see everything in the background. So this is where we're going to have the camera follow along with the character. Now, to link a camera to a character, to link a camera to anything, the easiest way to do that is we can select our character and we can press the U hotkey. Or it doesn't really matter what you have selected. If you press the U hotkey, it's going to toggle to your last camera. So this is the follow cam right here. You can see in the modify panel. If I press U again, it's going to toggle to my character. So this is a very useful hotkey, this U hotkey right here. On that topic, the H hotkey will switch to your preview camera and back to your camera as well. So if you're, modifying things in your scene, before you change anything in your scene, definitely make sure you press the H hotkey to go to preview camera. Otherwise, you can mess up your animation, and it's kind of frustrating to get everything back into place. So I'm just going to go back to my follow cam right now anyways, and I'm going to show you how to link the camera to your character. So to do that, let's go over here in the modify panel to the right. And we have this section called linkage, and all we need to do is select pick parent and pick our character. And you can see currently it's connected to his spine. And I'm going to play back just to show you why this is not cool. You can see that we have this camera just kind of moving about because it's actually attached to the character's spine. And that's not the smooth reverse dolly that we want. We want to have it connected to something that's a little bit more stable. And so let's go back to our frame 730 here. Always make sure you go back to the frame at the beginning of your shot there. And let's go ahead in here in the linkage section and let's select our character root. Now the character root is essentially the root of the character that's always in the center of the character, and it's not going to move around with the character unless the character's transform position moves up or down or left or right. It's very stable. It's not going to move like the hand or the head or anything like that. Let's play back now and we'll see what I'm talking about. You can see now we have this smooth transition, or the smooth reverse dolly. We're following the character. So that's really the easiest way to connect a camera to your character or to any moving object for that matter. Now the next frame, or the next shot rather, begins at frame 1200. So I'm going to just enter 1200 in here. And this is the end of our second shot. But at the end of the second shot, I'm actually going to also pan the camera over a little bit to the left. So I'm going to select the character first, hold the Alt key and right mouse click. We're going to pan over here, like this. And if I go back to the beginning, right here, about frame 730, you'll see how this has more of an effect. We're kind of getting a front view of the character, slowly panning to the front of the character, and we're getting a better look at the character. We're establishing the character a bit more. And that shot, like I said, will end at frame 1200. So let's just enter in 1200 right here. And then let's go ahead and add in our third camera. So we'll go to Create and Add Camera. And this camera is our close-up shot. So let's go ahead and enter in 03 close up for the camera name. And let's focus on the character. So I'm going to select our character again. Zoom in. We're going to zoom in on his face. And here I'm going to show you a couple things here. These are a bit more advanced, but I'm just going to show you them, and you can experiment with them on your own. We're going to zoom in on our character to about there. And what we're going to do here is use a tool called depth of field for our camera. So again, I'm going to press U to go to my camera modify panel over here. And up here we have a section called depth of field. So if I select activate right now, my depth of field is going to just blur out my character. And depth of field is essentially where the focus of your camera is. It's almost like a DSLR camera effect. It's going to focus on a certain area, and everything else is going to remain out of focus. So it's a fairly neat effect that you can use. And to focus on something, all you need to do is just press pick target, and then we're going to select our character, and it'll focus on our character right there. And you can see the character is 121 units away, which is the distance between the camera and the character, and the focus range is 800. If we increase that focus range to something like 500, or rather, sorry, 5,000, that'll be a better example there. You can see everything's in focus because our focus range is too long. But if we keep it at something like 200, for example, notice that everything kind of gets out of focus in the background. Maybe 200 is a bit strong. We can use something like 300 right there. So this is using depth of field to kind of focus the camera's attention on the character. So again, at this frame, we also need to link this camera to the character. So let's go ahead and pick parent, pick our character, and we're going to pick the root again. The same procedure as last time. Just press OK. And then we'll follow our character, and the next change will be at about frame 1600. But between this frame and frame 1600, we want to animate our camera so it's looking down at the dog midway. So let's press F3, go into our timeline, and we're going to do a little bit of a transform here. So we have close-up camera selected. And keep in mind that you can also select your cameras here from the track list as well. We can just minimize the props here, and you can select your cameras from here as well. But it's often easier just to select them from the content manager right here. So maybe at about, let's play this back from, this is our beginning frame for this camera, for this angle. And let's play back. Maybe at about here, we want the camera to zoom down and kind of focus on the dog. So in our transform track, I'm just going to simply double click right here. That's going to add a movement keyframe in our transform track. And then maybe at about this frame right here, we're going to have our camera zoom down to the dog. So let's just hold the Alt key and left mouse button and pan down to our dog right here. We have this cute little dog right there. He looks like a happy dude. And again, because I selected Chuck, and we have object-related track selected, Chuck's going to appear in the timeline now. We can just reselect our camera right there, and there's our second transform key for our close-up camera. So let's take a look at what this looks like when I play back. So we have walking along and like that. It's a little fast maybe for me. We could maybe increase the length of that pan down there. I think that's okay. Maybe a little bit longer. There we go. We're not going to be too picky. And so it's going to focus on the dog until about frame 1600. You can see already I had the rat character invisible before, but now he appears at this frame. So let's hold Alt and zoom in a little bit and find out exactly which frame that is. See, he appears at frame 590 or 1592. So at about frame 1590, what we want to do is switch to our third camera. So let's go ahead and add in, rather, our fourth camera. Let's go ahead and create and add camera. And let's call this one 04 tease reveal. And this is just going to tease, it's going to show part of the character. And for this one, we need to focus on our face of our thief here. And we're going to talk about a concept here called focal length. So I'm going to select my camera again. And you can see up here we have a slider for a parameter called focal length. And currently it's at 35. Now let's take a look at what happens if I change this to 80. Notice that everything in our scene seems a lot closer together. Everything in the distance doesn't seem so far away anymore. However, if I switch this over to 20 or something like that, notice that everything seems a lot further apart as far as distance is concerned. We can go, even to 12 and stuff like that, and you can get that really long aisle effect right there. We're just going to go to 80 right now because we want the opposite of that. And I'm going to select my character, zoom in quite a bit on his face. So we're going to be focusing more on this character's face, and we're going to have a surprise in just a moment. So at frame 1590, this is where we want this one to, we want to switch to this camera right here. And again, I'm just going to link this camera to our character really quickly. So pick parent, character, and then we want to select our root again. Just for a little bit right there. And it's going to follow our character for up to here. And maybe you can see the ear appear there in the corner. Maybe we need to focus a little bit more. Let's go to frame 1590 again. And let's zoom in a little bit more on our character's face. You can have maybe a lower camera angle like this. Something like this, I think, would be just fine. Let's see if that reveals anything. Nope, we can't see anything after that. So that's good right there. So frame 1590. And after our character stops walking, that's where we're going to begin to kind of pan to the side so we can see that character's face. So he stops walking at about here. And then at frame 1675, let's press F3, go into our timeline. Maybe at about frame 1675. Let's make sure we have our tease reveal camera selected. Let's add in a keyframe right there. And then we're going to go all the way to about frame 1900. This is going to be a very slow reveal. So we can zoom out a little bit even. Go all the way to frame 1900, just enter it in our timeline here. And then I'm going to add another keyframe right here. And this is as far as we're going to reveal our character. So I'll select Chuck right here. Let's pan over. And we're going to pan up a little bit. Whoops, we don't want to zoom out too much there. I zoomed out a little bit too much. So we just want to reveal our character slightly. And we're going to reveal him fully. Just want to show a little bit of his eye right there. We're going to reveal him fully later on with that dolly reveal shot. So again, let's select our tease reveal camera. You can see our transform key right there. Now one more thing we're going to switch is you can notice that we have a depth of field on here still. So we created a new camera and it retained that depth of field setting. So another kind of cool effect that we can do is just a very subtle thing we can do is let's zoom out a little bit. So our transition goes from here. We can reveal the rat right there. What we can do in addition to that is we can open up our tease reveal. We can open up our depth of field track right here. And right here is where our camera starts moving. And currently we have our camera depth of field selected as Chuck. We can just make sure that we pick the target and select his face right there. And then from here to here, we can change the target from our thief here, pick target, and then pick the rat in the background. So you can see it's a very, very subtle effect, but it's kind of cool to add that. You could probably make it a little bit stronger. So here it's very focused on our character, and then right there you can see it's less focus on his face and more focus on the character. We can increase that effect as well by increasing the amount of, or rather decreasing the focus range. So if we go here, for example, and we decrease the focus range to something like 200, we still have it focused on Chuck. And then from here, you can see we need to do that at every single keyframe here. So here again, change it to 200, and here again. Oops. Here again, make sure we have that same frame selected. Change it to 200 again. So it's going to look like this now. It's going to look a little bit stronger. See our character in the background right there. Just revealing him slightly, and then at frame 1900 again, we can enter it in here. 1900. This is where our final shot is. And for our final shot, we're going to use a cool thing called a path. So let's go ahead and create our next camera. This is our final camera right here, and then we're going to show how to switch all the cameras and everything like that for the final effect. So let's call this 05. We'll call this dolly reveal. And right now, I'm going to switch actually to my preview camera. So we can just go up here, switch to preview, or if you can recall, we can use the H hotkey as well. And I'm going to zoom back, and we're going to create a path. And if I zoom out, you can see all of our cameras right here. We can make all of those cameras invisible, which I'm going to do, except for my dolly reveal camera. So we're going to make them all invisible except for my dolly reveal camera, which is there. And let's create our first path. So let's go up to create and create path. So now my cursor changes into like a little kind of weird cone thing. I'm just going to create a simple path from about here to about there. Okay, so we have a path right there, and I can right click to end that path. And then what I can do is use the W hotkey, and that'll bring up my movement gizmo and bring up that path right here. Now if you can recall, at the beginning of this tutorial, we kind of went behind that pole right here. So I'm just going to move that path right behind that pole, which you can see right here. And just take a look at the position of our path. That looks fine right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my dolly reveal camera. I'm going to attach that to the path. So at frame 1900, this is where we begin. I'm going to go ahead and select Pick Path. And then I'm going to select the path right here. And now our camera is attached to this path. But you can see now that the camera is facing the wrong way. It's facing forward. And if we switch over to our dolly reveal camera by pressing the H hotkey, you can see it's kind of focused on the wall right there, which is not really what we want. Let's press the H hotkey again and go back to our preview. And this is where I'm going to use a cool little tool called our mini viewport. So let's go up to Window here, and let's select Mini Viewport. You can also use the F8 hotkey. And in the Mini Viewport, you can see down here, we can expand it to whatever size we want. Let's do it something like this. Currently it's set to Preview Camera. What I'm going to do is change this to our dolly reveal camera, and that's the same shot that we had before. So with our dolly camera, I'm not going to use depth of field for this one, so we're just going to go ahead and deactivate our depth of field. We need to actually go into the camera here, so we'll go to dolly reveal again, and let's just pan our camera over and to about, I think we want it to be about here. Our path was a little bit too long. We want it to kind of be facing the wall directly right here. So I think this is the beginning of our path right here. Let's go back to our preview camera. And let's select that path in the scene manager right here. So let's select motion path. Let's select our path. And let's move the path a little bit over here. And now our now our camera is focused on the character. So if you can recall, this camera moves until the very end of the scene. So let's go ahead all the way to the very end of the scene. Frame 2500 right here. And with our camera selected, let's change the position on our path section from 0 to 100. And you can see the camera now moves all the way down to the other end. And that's a little bit far. You can see that if we scrub through our timeline from, here, or rather, we started in 1900, so from here to there, it's moving past the rat dude, and it's moving a little bit too far down. The way we can change that is we can select our path, and let's go ahead and select Edit Path, and that should be at the top right here. So Edit Path right here, and let's just, we need to select this one point on the end. And what I'm going to do is use the W hotkey, and I'm going to move this point all the way until we can just barely see the rat. So it's about right here. Whoops. There, we want to go back about there. Okay, I think that's where we ended up at the last time, about right here. And then let's go ahead and play that back this time. So now you can see that we have from the character from frame 1900 right here. I'll go and reveal that ugly looking rat dude just sneaking up behind our main character right there. So that's going to be our final shot right there. So we have all of our shots pretty much laid out. All that's left to do now is switch the camera at certain frames. So to do that, I'm going to press F3, go into my timeline, and we can close down our path. We don't need that right now. Let's go all the way back down to frame 1. We're going to start with our first shot. So let's go ahead and in our switcher track right here, I'm going to right click and we're going to select from the camera list, we're going to select Establish Shot right here. And to see what all these shots look like, I'm going to switch from Preview Camera up here to the switch mode right here. So now if we're in switch mode, it's going to show whatever is in this switcher track right here. So if you can recall, our first shot ended at frame 730. So let's go right down to frame 730. Oops, we're at frame 4 actually. We need to bring this all the way back down to frame 1. There you go. That's why you normally need to zoom in right there. So at frame 1 now we have shot 1, established shot. Let's go to frame 730 right here. And then let's just right click. I'm going to zoom in first to make sure I have the right frame selected. And right click in frame 730, camera list, shot 2. And this is going to be shot 2. And then let's enter in frame 1200, which is where our next shot ends. Or rather, our next shot begins. And let's go ahead from here and select close up. And then we get the close up right here. And then let's move over to frame 1600. And right here, right click, camera list, tease reveal. And then our last shot starts at frame 1900, and right click and camera list and dolly reveal. So it's pretty much as easy as that. That's the general workflow that I like to follow. Now, some of you may have different workflows, and you can find more help on the camera stuff in the forums, and you can just email me as well. But that's generally the workflow that I like to follow. It's just move my camera to a certain position where I want to start my shot, do my shot, and then set the next camera up, and don't worry about all the rest. That's normally the easiest and fastest way to do it. So everything is pretty much set up already. So we have all of our camera switching done. In switch mode, let's go back to frame 1, and we'll play back and see what happens. Well, you can see at one point, I think it was right about here, we're still in the dog and the rat is revealed in the background. So we can go back and switch that really quickly. Let's press F3. And all we need to do is change that camera switch to a little bit earlier. Which frame are we at right here? So we need to switch this frame, have the switch happen at about frame 1590. So again, just take this one switch keyframe right here and go back to frame 590 right here, and then we'll switch like that. And that's what we're looking for. So we can repair that really easily right there. And then when we have that, the rat appears and we see the full rat and he kind of looks creepy. And everything like that. So that's pretty much all there is to it. By the way, the props and the characters that I use in this tutorial, this rat character right here, this is from Nectarus. You can find this in the marketplace. And this character right here, this thief, is from our developer Big Boss, as well as that cute little dog is from our developer Big Boss as well. And the background of this scene is from our developer Sinister. And this pack is called Rat's Alley. So that's about all there is to it. We kind of rushed through a lot of the camera concepts and everything like that. We do have other tutorials on Camerawork that I recommend you check out. We also have our forums that can help out, and a lot of really good tutorials online about Camerawork and cinematography that I would recommend taking a look at to kind of help you with creating your scene and all that fun stuff. So again, thanks for watching, guys, and enjoy your time using iClone.